Welcome into the Illini Inquirer podcast. Derek Piper and I subbing in for Jeremy Werner, just staring at each other here to start this
Sorry,
out.
I was still hearing the music, so I was waiting for it to play.
Illinois goes into Kohl Center, Derek Piper, and gets a big 91-83 win over Wisconsin, a quad one win to start the month of March. Marcus Domask, 31 points in his homecoming back to his home state. Terrence Shannon Jr., 23 points. Illinois gets 13 points from Coleman Hawkins, 10 from Justin Harmon. Is there a story bigger right now than Marcus Domask's homecoming, Derek?
Look at this natural leading us in through the pod. Joey Wagner, broadcast professional here. But, yeah, Marcus Domask in his homecoming to have as good a one as you could have expected, to score 30-plus and to have one of his most complete games of the season. So to do that against Tyler Wall and really to isolate him, down the stretch they were just letting him bring up the ball and know that he had a bunch of open space in the middle of the lane, could go right hand, left hand, and was able to just go to work. And really, I asked Marcus about it. I've kind of been thinking, workshopping this idea on Marcus throughout the season. It just seems like a guy that a lot of times is just playing in his driveway, playing in a one-on-one situation, is just so comfortable and hits you with that turnaround, that old man game, or even, maybe he's that older guy at the YMCA who you can't do anything with him. So, big time performance to have the turnout that he did from his family and friends. You asked him, Joey, going in and also just afterwards, that sounded like a couple hundred of them, and you could hear the cheers for him, throughout the day. And man, just a guy that was playing with a lot of confidence, a lot of swagger, stepping up there, and it's just still kind of surreal to think back to, how he was thought of. Yes, an all Missouri Valley guy, a guy that 1,600-point scorer, but to be doing this on this stage, a 19 points per game guy in Big Ten play. I mean, he scored more points per game in Big Ten play than he did Missouri Valley play last year, which is crazy. So he's obviously elevated. Brad's put him in a great situation. You and I talked a lot. We had a lot of time to drive up here this morning, and just kind of circling back to the idea that, Brad made a great call on going all in on Marcus, and obviously you love that he's in your uniform because he could have been in the other Badger red, if you let things play out.
Yeah, you could have. I do want to address some road venues are a little more difficult to find a place to podcast than others. We are in a place that is a little more difficult to find a place to podcast. So there's a little background noise. We apologize for that. Bear with us through that. But yeah, Derek, I think it was just the way he did it. He did it in the exact Marcus Domask ways, with the turnarounds, the fadeaways. He got into the post. He didn't get sped up. I thought he answered. When Wisconsin made runs, and Wisconsin did make runs, I thought he answered. They tie it up at 68 there in the second half. He goes down there totally unfazed, gets a layup, puts them back up, and they never lost that lead again. And I thought that was a big moment. It just felt like when Illinois needed something, they answered. Wisconsin ties at 57. Marcus Domask gets a layup. He just was calm, and Brad Underwood made a good point, and I know we'll get to some of Brad Underwood's audio here shortly, but he said all homecomings don't usually go like this. There can be a lot on your plate to come back into a state. Marcus Domask lost here in the final game, in the state championship game. I know his dad coached him there during that, and his dad mentioned we caught up with Dan Domask, his dad. We'll have a story on the Illini Inquirer there. But that kind of left a little bit of a taste for them, and they had a huge turnout to see him back. It's his first game in the state of Wisconsin since he graduated high school, and a lot of people were interested in seeing him, and he delivered. Like, it was just so impressive to see him handle that in a way that, again, as Brad said, it doesn't always happen that way. And I guess it's kind of a testament to Marcus, Derek. I don't know about you, but I don't know that I expected differently. It just kind of seems like that's who he is, a guy who doesn't get rattled.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I thought that this would be a good performance out of him, and he's been just so consistent, and on the whole has been really, really efficient. And in Big Ten play, 49% from the field. And again, you can't speed him up. You run so much offense through him. I thought that with the booty ball offense had the potential to get some good matchups. Now, they went kind of with their smaller guards, like Klesmit was guarding Coleman Hawkins for most of the day. So I wondered, is Illinois going to get those, Chucky Hepburn or Klesmit onto Domask? But really it was Wall for the most part having that matchup. And I think it is a credit to Domask, that that's a good sized dude that you're not going to move a whole lot. That kind of had to vary up a little bit some of his attacks. Some of it was not getting just to the back down. It was facing him up and taking him off the dribble, where he's a little bit more on skates. And so really that step back, take him right, step back left, and finish on that left side was a move that he went to multiple times and executed repeatedly. And then also, the turnaround jumper is it's pure. It's one of those shots that he's just casually shooting buckets on a Saturday type of thing. And that's the thing. You're a sold out crowd on the road. What's been for a long time one of the tougher places to get a win in the Big Ten, and he's just cool, calm, and collected. And I think it does say even more about him that, the eyeballs on him, the family, the loved ones, all of that it can put some added pressure. It could be a distraction even more than sometimes a motivator or something that just you dream up in your head how it's supposed to look like, and sometimes it doesn't go that way. So for him, as you diagram, to have those answers, for him to just perform with that steadiness and composure as he's done for most of the season, but it was just continues to be a really, really impressive thing. And I think as we're in March, you start to think a lot about how this thing's going to end, right? So for him in his last ride to get to play here and have during the season that he's having, as they're about to go on this last little stretch before they go to the Big Ten tournament, before it's postseason play, he's kind of defining how he's going to go out. And Wisconsin fans and people in the state are going to remember him as maybe one of the ones that got away, obviously, and especially if Illinois goes on a run to remember. And obviously, Joey, he's a big part of that coming to fruition. Him and Terrence, I know we're going to talk about that duo, but anytime those two can have the type of day that they have together, good luck beating Illinois. I'm not saying you can't, because we know they have some other stuff they got to get better at and whatnot, but that's as good of a 1-2 punch when it's going as a lot of them out there.
Yeah, I do want to make one more point about Marcus before we jump into the combination of he and Terrence Shannon. I don't want to paint the picture of a guy who's just kind of like all stoic all the time, right? And a guy who is just kind of like, oh, ho home, 31 points in my home state. Like, okay, he showed some emotion out there. He hit a dagger turnaround, put him up 10. I thought I saw a little shrug to his bench. He said, yeah, I did that. Like, you want that. You want that kind of that bite to your guys and to be able to play with that confidence and let him go. So I thought that was just to see him kind of put his hair down, for lack of better terms, and just kind of take that moment in was really good. Then you pair him and Terrence Shannon, Derek, and those two combined for 54 points. And they're huge, obviously. You combine for that many points to go into Wisconsin and get a win, and they just do it differently, right? They do it in such different ways. Terrence Shannon's the guy you get out in transition. I thought he had just some really cold three-pointers tonight. I remember just a crossover, a stop, and boom, and he hit it. And then Marcus is a guy who's a little more deliberate, a guy you can call a play to, get him down in that post, let him play that booty ball. I think you're starting to see a lot of people feel like Illinois felt a year ago in trying to figure out this booty ball situation, and Illinois is doing such a good job with it. And then you have a guy who can, Terrence Shannon, give him the ball and get out of the way. We thought early on they probably could have done that a little bit more in this game and get some shots, but to have two guys, if you're going to beat Illinois, you probably kind of need both those guys to go cold, right? Or to have a quieter game. And it's hard. Like they have answers for a lot of different things that they're going to see. They do such a good job of attacking matchups. And those two give you guys give Illinois a really good 1-2 punch headed into the postseason where, oh boy, it's getting a little noisy here. Headed into the postseason where you need like stars. Stars matter in the postseason. They do. Good teams. You've seen good teams make those runs. But if you go in the postseason, I want a star. And Illinois' got two guys who can step into that role.
There's no doubt about that. 54 points combined between those two. We've seen explosive outings like FAU. I thought that was another game where Marcus really kind of flashed some of that swagger. I think he's a guy that, yes, for the most part is very composed, and you can't get him too high or too low. But he likes to get his guys going, give them a look or a nod or whatever. A little bit of emotion towards the crowd. It's a confident guy. It's a guy that yes, he's coming from a mid-major conference, not known really nationally leading up until this season, but he's not fazed by any stage, any opponent, and there's a swagger about him, there's a toughness about him that he definitely carries with him. So Isaac Ambrose, our producer on this thing, I know that he's got a video sliced up from the post game. Brad Underwood talking about the duo of both Marcus Domask and Terrence Shannon Jr.
I thought that we did a nice job of handling that. Took us a little bit. I thought Terrence really settled us down with a stretch in our defense, and I think we had a sequence. We had 7 or 8 straight stops in that time frame, and that got us back in it. I thought that Marcus handled his return back to the state in a way that was unique. Most of the time, those don't go that way. But in front of friends and family, he did it against an elite defender all night long in Tyler Wall, who I have so much respect for. I thought offensively, we settled down after we got out of the first few minutes, and I thought Terrence did a terrific job on AJ, kind of limiting his 4-12, didn't get off a 3. So it was nice game on the defensive side for us, and then offensively we just kind of found our way, and so excited for the win and beat a very, very good team that is going to have an opportunity to make a deep run in the tournament.
That was Brad Underwood from just a few hour ago or so, talking to us here at Kohl Center. He mentions there in the front end, Joey, let's address this, and then we can circle back to this duo that Illinois has had as one of the best in the Big Ten, and obviously going to carry with them into postseason play. But the emotional beginning of this game, Howard Moorback, the former player for Wisconsin, former assistant here, and obviously the tragic car accident with his family, losing his wife, losing his daughter, and that ceremony that took place, which obviously was very heartfelt, touching, hard, impossible to not have tears in your eyes watching that play out, and got a very deserved and warm response, and it just seemed to energize this building, as you can imagine. First time he'd been back since 2019, since the incident. So there was just heightened emotions. Wisconsin threw the first handful of punches, so Illinois is a little out of sorts offensively early, but to Brad's point, they were able to weather that. They didn't let that thing get away from them, because I know, Joey, when we can talk about this, you and I kind of turned to each other and was like, this might be just one of those days where the juice in the building, the energy in the building is just really, really hard to overcome. Fortunately for Illinois' standpoint, they were able to weather that and then get back in the game, and then it felt a little more normal from that point forward.
Yeah, that was a really powerful pregame, called a ceremony. I don't know a better word, the way they honored Howard Moore. So yeah, that you wondered, right? Like, you wondered how that was going to go. You had 17,000 people very, very loudly, getting behind this program, this everything that's been with that ceremony. And I thought, how's this going to go? And I talked to someone else up there on press row, and they said, listen, Wisconsin's got to weather this too. That was a really emotional moment, a powerful moment. But man, Wisconsin came out strong, and Illinois was on its heels a little bit. And I think that's what you want a veteran team for, right? To know how to maybe level back out and get back on your toes and play a little bit more your game after that. It was just one more thing. I mean, that was really cool to see. It was cool to see him back. What a tragic experience for him, and for them to honor him and to get him back. That was really powerful. That was a really, really, really powerful moment. Kudos to Wisconsin. They handled that perfectly. I mean, absolutely, you couldn't have done it better than what they did. And then they rode that for 6, 7, 8 minutes into that game, and Illinois came back. They were down 14-5, Derek, at one point. Wisconsin was on a 12-0 run after Dane Danger was called for that flagrant that ended up really being a 4-point play. You want to guess how they stopped the 12-0 run? Marcus Domask. He got him going. He got in that post-up situation, got Illinois back. Terrence Shannon split a pair of free throws after that. And then Terrence Shannon turned it on. And then Marcus Domask came back. And again, like, not to keep belaboring the point, but when you talk about stars, like, that's guys who are talented enough, composed enough to step into that and get their team back. So that was, I think, that early on, just seeing those two be the catalyst to get Illinois back was not particularly shocking. And I thought it told you a lot about kind of as they go, this thing follows. And I know someone mentioned 3 stars with Coleman Hawkins. Yeah. Tonight it was Marcus Domask and Terrence Shannon. We've seen it be Coleman Hawkins before. It's kind of the beauty of what this Illinois offense and what this Illinois team can be.
Absolutely. And I did think that Coleman, given the opportunities, really took advantage and operated pretty well in that back down against Klesman. I thought Wisconsin was trying to hide him. You got to put him on somebody, and you want him on the floor if you're the Badgers, because it's a guy that can go absolutely nuclear from 3. I mean, he's had a handful of games hitting 5 threes in this building, 5 in the first half against Marquette, in fact. So he's going to be out there, but is he going to guard Domask? Probably not. Is he going to guard Ty Rodgers? Of course, Ty can play some booty ball too, even though Ty and the Hole didn't play all that well in this game. But they had Klesman against Coleman. Coleman operated and scored there a handful of backdowns. But for the most part, it was Marcus's night to have the ball in his hands. And Terrence, I thought at times, especially in the second half, when Illinois had a lead and didn't really break that thing open or hold on to it, that they didn't go to him enough in pick and roll. They didn't get enough actions going for him. So, but ultimately, playing through Marcus down the stretch really was all that they needed. So, another thing, Joey, I was digging through this just to kind of remind myself. I went through it at one point earlier this season, but Evan Maya, and I'm not blaming him or his metrics. I know a lot of it is analytical based and whatnot, but there were transfer rankings going into, at a point in the offseason, ranking the different transfers and projected impact and whatnot. And Marcus Domask was 115th in the country on Evan Maya as far as transfer rank. I mean, he's probably top 15, maybe even top 10. I'd have to really dig into the research. Probably top 10 in terms of impact. I mean, especially if you really take the context of how much he is able to cover up as far as that point guard conversation, as far as how much you're putting on his plate in terms of playmaking, in terms of getting the mismatches that you want, and how unique Illinois is because they play that booty ball. So he's been unbelievable. Again, we can say it a million times, but Brad was right. Brad was right on that one, dead on the money. It's paying huge dividends, and the result is that you got two real stars. We saw it, and they're different. They're different in terms of the tandem, but one of the real turning points, the real turning point, in my opinion, was having a duo, if not a trio, of, I would assume, Kofi Coburn coming in here and ending a streak. I'd throw Trent Frazier in there if you want to talk a trio, and all of a sudden the dynamic flips on Wisconsin, who had a number of great players for the years, Kaminsky and obviously Nigel Hayes, and we can go, Sam Decker, on and on and on, that just dominated Illinois. And now Illinois has the talent advantage in a lot of these matchups, not all of them, during this win streak. And just the fact that they were able to reload with Terrence. Matthew Meyer was huge in last year's, but Domask is, as we know, more solid than Meyer, and Shannon's on another level. And these two together, they complement each other well. Throw Coleman in there too, and it's a sight to see. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, Derek. I joined you on the radio for a couple hours yesterday, and we talked about kind of that streak in Madison snapping. And if you look at where a lot of the meat of that streak was, that Wisconsin advantage, these programs were at very, very different places, right? That was one of the gross years for Illinois, where Wisconsin was really pushing it along there. But so you kind of thought as Illinois got to this level again, really in that 2019-2020 season that COVID stopped the tournament, maybe it was going to balance out. But to come into Madison and get 4 straight wins over a Wisconsin program that no one's making them out to have fallen off. They were ranked in the top 10 this year. It's the number 22 team on KenPom. This is still a good program. So I think just to look at Illinois having come in here and won 4 times, like that tells you like a lot about sustainability, right? Because it's been a different cast of characters in those 4 games that they've come in here and done that. And it's what you want. Like if you it's what you want out of your program. I'm going to stop talking in a hot second and let you take over on this because it's getting loud behind me. But I think that that tells me a lot. It wasn't the same 4 guys who, and look, we've seen Wisconsin have cores, right? That they come in and they've just done untold amounts of damage to opponents because this core is stuck around forever. And like Illinois in these 4 wins, I think it's really interesting that it's just been a different star as you go forward through those. And that's pretty telling to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you got to answer the call every offseason and roster building. You got to answer when guys go pro. You got to answer when guys that you expected to be long-term foundations and building blocks go to the portal. And certainly there's big opportunity to get someone like a Marcus Domask who is that experienced, that instant impact ready, and just to obviously build a roster this year of old guys. And I asked Marcus after the game, is just kind of sensing that last ride is in this window too. So I know that's a conversation on its own, but yeah, Brad has been able to put this program in a position to be really competitive, to be a tournament team. We're going to talk more obviously about their tournament resume. Sorry if it sounds like a train's coming down the tracks, but this is a good program to have a big winning streak on. Of course, knowing how just enormous and ridiculous really it was for Wisconsin to win 15 straight against Illinois. Now that it's 7 for the Illini going the other way, it's a pretty good one. And it's not just no shade at Minnesota or Nebraska or Penn State, even though Penn State has had 4 straight wins against you. Actually, this is one that certainly carries a decent amount of weight. Wisconsin, though, does have, as far as this season, 7 losses in their last 9 games. They have really taken multiple steps back since being 8-1 in the league. I think it was a 16-4 start overall, and a team that projected at one point, I think, as high as a 2 seed in the tournament, went into today as a 5 seed, and we'll see where they go from here. They still got to go to Mackey for the regular season finale, and then they host. Actually, their next game is hosting Rutgers. So we'll see how the Badgers finish out. As far as Illinois goes, though, even though this has been a late season swoon for Wisconsin, on paper as it stands, this is Illinois' most impressive win in terms of their resume, the net ranking at Wisconsin 22nd going into today. Even if that falls, it's a road win against the top 25. Even if it were to fall, which I don't think it would, losing to Illinois, but top 25, top 30 on the road. Prior to that, it was Michigan State at home. That's the 24th ranked team in the net on your home floor. FAU 35th, 36th on a neutral. So getting this one was a big one. I don't think this is a seed line mover win. It's part of a puzzle piece, a connector piece, in my opinion. If you can connect this one with Purdue, then you're really in a situation to feel like, you're a real contender for a 3 seed in that spot, because you then go into Iowa. You still have the Big Ten tournament. The Purdue one is the quad 1A. I know we're going to really talk about how much this win sets up the most possible game for that Purdue game in the regular season finale in terms of your home games. But what do you make of this one on its own, but also just kind of what it leads to coming up on Tuesday in Champaign?
Yeah, it sets up. Yeah, Derek, you got it like a Zamboni coming your way in 1 second. So be on the lookout for that. Hey, how we doing? I don't think this moves the seed line. I get it's a good quad 1 win, and you're right. It is their best win on paper. I pulled up Bracket Matrix to take a look, and they still have them as the 4 seed. There's a lot still to come tonight and this weekend, and obviously still for next week. But it sets up your March where you can change yourself, right? You can jump, maybe work your way up a seed line. You probably need some things. I see that Zamboni in the shadow. You give a little wave there. Tell them how we doing. Welcome to the pod, buddy. So I think like this sets up that March. If you want to make a jump, this is your run. And Purdue is the one. Purdue is the marquee win that this resume lacks. totally. This one's pretty good. I mean, this is a good quad 1 win. Is it a quad 1A? Probably not. I wouldn't say that. I don't think anyone would. But I think you give yourself a chance to move up that seed line, and really winning here gives you some maybe a little bit of room so you don't fall down. If you lose to Purdue, you don't hit down to that 5 seed. I don't know. I mean, do you want to be a 4 or 5? Someone smarter than me can figure that out. I don't know, but give yourself a chance to move up, and that's what it is. Like, that's where we are. Chat's filled with it right now. I get it. Yeah. All right, Fetigator's on my team. That's good stuff. Like, I get it. Like, that's where this is right now. The Big Ten. If you want to try to make a run, you're going to need some help, and it doesn't feel likely. So it's seed talk, right? Like, that's where it is. You want to boost that resume, get yourself in a position to take a jump up there a little bit, and we'll see. I mean, to come into Madison and do that helps. Bracket matrix, still the 4 seed. Yep. San Diego State, Auburn, Creighton, other 4 seeds. I would imagine Creighton is probably going to – I think Marquette is a little shorthanded in the matchup between those two today. But just give yourself a chance in March. Like, we've seen in different elements over the past couple of years, some of those more Big Ten championship runs, where you should give yourself a chance in that last 10 days of the season to get that, take that leap. So we'll see if they can, Derek, but certainly coming in here today puts you in a position to make that happen.
For sure. Yeah. This is a situation where the Ken Palm, the net, they've liked Illinois really throughout the year. But I personally have wondered more so probably for an eye test momentum type of situation of getting some wins against tournament teams. I thought that was really important. I wrote it in my column this past week of, since Shannon's been back, they were 8-3 going into this game and had only one win against a tournament team during that stretch, that being Nebraska, who's forecasted kind of in that 9 seed range. And I do think that as you kind of get in contention with some of these teams, as it really boils down, and not only is the seed line important, but maybe where you stand on that seed line. You maybe don't want to be ideally in UConn's region if you're a 4, just kind of the way that plays out, that some of the top tier wins that you have could really be in comparison against some other teams. So for Illinois' standpoint, you didn't have an elite win. You still don't have an elite win. Like, Wisconsin's swoon here of late is going to hurt that, but you did what you had to do. You got a quad 1. You're now 5-5 in quad 1 games, which is always good to be 500 or better. It's also good that Maryland of late has done well enough to where that loss on your home floor is not a quad 3 loss. You don't have a really just egg on your face loss on your resume right now. Jake Diebler at Ohio State's done you some favors by holding serve, getting some nice wins since he's been the interim. So that's a quad 1 win in Columbus. And then you got 2 quad 1 wins quad 1 games coming up, would be wins if you get them. Purdue, which is a quad 1A like we talked about, and then Iowa, which would be another nice quad 1 on the road there in Iowa City. Before you go to a neutral in the Big Ten tournament, could get 1, 2. It would depend on who you play in that Friday. But on that note, you did clinch a double bye here today, so we should mention that too. So still some big things, and of course it's going to matter where some of those other squads currently slotted ahead of you, what they do the rest of their season, what they do in their conference tournaments, and that'll be a fun part of the watch here the rest of the way, is not only Illinois and what they're doing, but you can tune in around the country and, hey, we use this team to lose and maybe this team to win to make this win look even better and those type of things. So that's kind of what this year is about. And yes, this time of year is about. And yes, the seed line movement is really important because the three line is really much more favorable in terms of a deep run. Again, you never know. Kind of, it's matchup based and who you catch on a certain day type of thing. But avoiding the 1 seed line, especially in the Sweet 16, avoiding kind of a high level opponent like a 4-5 versus there's a little bit more advantage baked into a 3-6 if you do get that. So nice for Illinois to take that step. And then kind of just eye test wise, I think, and I kind of want to throw that back to you, Joey. This was a good one to see them get. And I do want to ask you, kind of tied in with that, is what do we make of the defense? And they give up 80 again, because I know that's a big part of the eye test conversation. But you and I are kind of talking. Outside Tyler Wall, it felt like on the whole, you you did a decent job there.
Yeah, defense fell a couple spots in Ken Pom. The actual number didn't move a ton, but the defense fell a little bit there. So, but it didn't feel like that, right? Like the Minnesota game felt like that without question. Like you looked at that and like this is not good. But they got in rotation a couple times and that hurt them. We know Brad Underwood doesn't love getting in rotation like that, and I thought you could see a little bit of why there. And yeah, Tyler Wall. I thought Ty Rogers struggled defensively today, and that was just not what we expected coming into the season. But this didn't feel like some of the defensive games, Derek, that we've seen out of Illinois over the course of the last month, or really dating back. I know we talked about it yesterday, dating back to that Northwestern game in Evanston. I say that, and listen, Wisconsin still shot 50% from the field, 38% on three-pointers. They made 17 of 23 free throws. I think their points per possession was
1.25 or something like that.
That feels like, given what we've seen from Illinois, that doesn't feel like the worst thing in the world. But that's not a number.
It's not terrible, but it's not great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So gotta help you a ton.
So I mean, at this point, like, it's got to assume like, okay, the offense is going to do this for Illinois. I did wonder. We talked about it yesterday. Is there a gear that Illinois has when things start to get now, right? Like at this point of the season where they can ramp up to average? Because like 90, I think they're 99 right now in Ken Pom, but if you zoom in a little bit over the course of the last 6 weeks, it's much, much worse than that. It's in the 200s, correct, Derek?
It was 270 in February alone. You go since Shannon's return going into today, it was 202nd or something like that. It's the worst. Any at-large team in the NCAA tournament, you will not find a worse defensive rating over the last month or month and a half in Illinois.
Yeah, that's it's just not what we've grown to see from this program, or grown to expect to see from this program, the way Brad Underwood talks about defense. We talked about it yesterday. I'll bring it up again. If this team can just get to average defensively, right now they're kind of hanging their hats on stopping them for a stretch, like 6, 7, 8 possessions and letting their offense build them a lead to withstand that. But if they can just get to an average defense, I think there's a lot there. There's a lot of meat on the bone for this Illinois team to make a run. But what evidence do we have? I thought today was better, right? But like, there's so many other variables and other pieces of information we have to know that like today was better, but it's still not a very good defense right now. So can they get there? I guess that's my long-winded way of asking. Can they get to an average defense? I don't know.
I don't know either. They have flaws for sure. I thought Justin Harmon got beat off the dribble a handful of times today by Hepburn. Hepburn's a good point guard, can get in the lane and make some things happen. But look, I mean, there's talented guys on the other side. Like you're gonna get beat. That's gonna happen at times, and you kind of just got to play through it. You got to score more than you give up, and that's really the goal of the game. So Illinois can play maybe a little bit of a different way than a squad that doesn't have as much firepower. I just don't like when some of there's mistakes like Harmon losing. Was it Blackwell? Right, Blackwell was underneath the basket and just completely lost him. Some of those mental mistakes that just can't happen. Jumping in the air on a shot fake. I know Dane got caught in the air at one point and gave up one there. There are just some things that Illinois can clean up, the correctable stuff. But Tyler Wall's a tough matchup, and he had a day today. And ultimately, though, I felt like Illinois for the most part battled pretty well. There were some pockets where they let Wisconsin probably get things a little bit too easily, but maybe it would have been a little bit of a different story, or just a harder guard if Stephen Crowell wasn't spending most of his afternoon on the bench, because that's kind of where 2 post-up options. But I think going in, I bet Wisconsin wanted to post Illinois to death, really, because of the way that their metrics have stacked up and how good they've been post-ups, and Illinois hasn't been all that good defending the post, especially Coleman and anybody really outside of Quincy. But Quincy got beat baseline a few times by Wall. So essentially, we're really going to know, where it stands going against Purdue, because Purdue has been a pretty good defensive team on the whole. I mean, I think they're top 15 metrics wise as far as defensive efficiency, and then obviously they're even higher than Illinois offensive efficiency-wise. So I think some of it in terms of today are the times where Illinois fouls, yes. Or feels like every second half I watch, it's the whistle is so tight on both sides that it's maddening because it's so disjointed to watch, but also like that does not help your points per possession rating as a defense if a ticky-tack call that a lot of times maybe in the tournament doesn't get called. You hope doesn't get called. You don't want refs getting in the way that then can vault up your numbers. So some of the numbers I think for the most part Wisconsin was kind of sitting in that 1.1, 1.15 range for most of the day. Free throws late and down the stretch kind of made it 1.25, which isn't good. And like you mentioned, it actually hurt your defensive rating even more. So we'll see Purdue though. Purdue's a darn good offense. Iowa, we know, can score. But the good news is Illinois is still just a wagon offensively and showing no signs of stopping.
Yeah, I didn't have the 1.2 is not ideal. I didn't have a big defensive issue today. There were spurts, right? As you mentioned, some Ty Rogers stuff, Justin Harmon losing his guy, Quincy getting beat. I thought Terrence on a couple ball screens got beat a little bit. But overall, I didn't really leave today thinking like, oh, boy, this defensive slide is going to continue in a way that it has. I also think you look at AJ. I thought Terrence Shannon did a really good job on AJ Storr. 4 of 12 shooting, 13 points. 5 of his points come from the free throw line. If you're Illinois, you'll take that. Like that's the guy who can beat you. And Terrence Shannon, I thought did a really, really good job, Derek, for most of the day, keeping him in check. But yeah, you're right. The test is against Purdue, and I want to get to it. So we can start jumping into some questions here. But someone asked about Purdue, and I think while we're talking a little bit about them and what they do, they said, "Hey, what do you think will happen with Ty Rogers with Purdue coming up?" Look at Ambrose; he's so good at this. With Purdue coming up, we obviously know what happened last time. That's a good question because Illinois was objectively better when they went away from Ty Rogers because Purdue just plumped Zach Edey on him. And Illinois, that, of course, in that second half, they made that run at Mackey to try to get that thing a little bit closer. I think if you go back and listen to what Brad Underwood has said when we've asked him, haven't really asked in a while because seeing a 5-man on Ty Rogers is the norm at this point. But he said, yeah, you can do it if you're not 7 feet tall. Or 7 feet 4 tall or 7'4" and a national player of the year like Zach Edey is. So I do wonder, and I think that's a good question. What will they do? Will they try to just ride with it and see if they can get some advantages and Ty a little more experienced in that situation, or are they going to go away? I don't know. We won't know. Brad probably will not tell us when we chat with him on Monday. But what do you think, Derek?
It's a good question. I think on the whole, Ty's got to be better than he has been the last week and a half on the whole, regardless of matchup, to get a lot of minutes. You saw him not play all that much down the stretch. Defensively was giving up too much, dribble drive to the rim, and then offensively has not shown a whole lot of aggression or want to around the basket. Had one attempt, it was pretty notable, a thud off the backboard. Wasn't particularly close, and just hasn't shown a lot of confidence offensively here of late. So I do think for Illinois, if you're thinking about this offense, trying to have its best possible outcome against Purdue, you look in the second half of that Purdue game in West Lafayette and making Edey really get out and guard ball screens, making him stretch out to get Coleman, and that was a tie off the floor. So I think that making Edey guard a capable shooter is the way I want to go. It really spaced them out and made driving lanes more free. And Edey's just not a guy that can really recover to the lane all that well. So I think that for Illinois, it's best when Ty isn't out there just based on that. I'm not saying that Ty hasn't, because he has. Purdue throwing that out at Illinois kind of shell-shocked him, I feel like. I don't think Ty and Tyler knew how to react. I don't think Illinois and Tyler knew how to react. There were some times in the second half that they adjusted a little bit. They put Ty kind of on the baseline in that dunker, and some of it was just Illinois not executing as well out of it. So I'm not saying you can't play Ty Rogers at all against Purdue. I just think on the whole, number one, need Ty to be better defensively just to want to play him because offensively he's not giving you a lot. Although then you're kind of playing the whole who do you want to play instead type of game. You can kind of shorten that bench because Luke's not giving you a lot either right now. He's a little nicked up too with the ankle and had, which he told us on the radio earlier this week. He also, as you noticed, kind of wearing like a
heating pad type
heating
thing.
pad on the knee. Yeah. So
it also looked, and I know people have asked about Luke Goody. We didn't get a chance to ask Brad today. We will ask him on Monday. I know where some of the concern would be is he went for a rebound. It looked like he took kind of a hard fall off of the floor, but we didn't get a chance to ask Brad Underwood. He was still on the bench. He had what someone correctly pointed out, the heating pad on his knee. So we'll see. We'll ask him and try to get an update there. But as of right now, we don't have one. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he's kind of struggled a little bit here of late. So I'll be really interested to see what they do. I will say, and we kind of glossed over this today, his struggles recently, but today, Justin Harmon, I thought, off the bench, gave you another nice punch there. He's like, we talked about it, I asked him about it. Like, he's mastered that drive in from the left, awkward looking floater. And I thought outside of that defensive play where he was all turned around in every which way, didn't do a wide open layup, I thought he had a pretty solid day. So that kind of helps maybe work through some Luke Goody struggles. But we'll see. We'll see what that looks like. We'll see what Brad Underwood says about Luke Goody on Monday when we talk to him. What else we got here? Boy. Is Domask playing his way, Derek, into the Big Ten all-first team?
That's a great question. I think that as you look at it, I mentioned it earlier, 19 points a game in Big Ten play. I usually like, as far as looking at the all-conference team picture, I really like to look at the league stats. I know that sometimes there's not a lot of variance in terms of season-long versus league, but I think it is important, in my opinion, to look at that. So 19 points a game at 49% shooting, super efficient, big-time scoring, obviously punch there too. Not a bad rebounder as well, and get some assists worked in as well. So if you're talking first team, obviously you're going Terrence on there. You're going Zach on there. Let's see. I think Jameer's stats are really, really good at Maryland.
Boo Buie
has to be on there. And you might round it out with, Tyson Walker.
So that would be fair.
That would be 5, but I don't think it's crazy to put Marcus in that conversation as well. I mean, he's made it something to really think about. I'd have to dig in. Honestly, I'd have to dig in a little bit deeper and kind of do the comparisons. But I think with you bringing up Boo, it's definitely got to be Terrence, Edey, Boo, and although Jameer and Tyson are the ones that first come to mind for me. So I'd have to kind of compare and contrast to see if Marcus can slide in there.
Yeah, I'm with you. Hey, real quick, super chat. Our guy Mark Fonger sent us some money to pick up a couple beers on the way home. He read our mind. We did have a stop before we got out of here. Mark, thank you. Thank you all for jumping in here. Give us a like. Super chats are welcome. We'll try to get to some questions here. A Fedigator, a staple of these, Derek Piper, went out and Illinois may just work themselves into a 3 seed. I think that's I mean, you win out right now. That also poses the second question: do you really want to win the Big Ten tournament? And I know that sounds weird to say, but there's obviously the rest versus getting on a roll discussion there. But I think if you win out, you've got some good wins, right? Like you've got some very, very good wins on your resume going into the NCAA tournament.
If you're talking win out through the Big Ten tournament, you're absolutely a 3 seed, at least, because you're probably have beaten Purdue twice. Now, I'm not just going to automatically say they're 100% going to be waiting for you on Sunday of the Big Ten tournament, but quad 1 win against Purdue, quad 1 win against Iowa, at least probably a quad 1 win Saturday and then Sunday of the Big Ten tournament, barring some crazy, wacky stuff in the bracket where, you're playing Penn State on a Saturday and whoever it is on a Sunday, to where those aren't quad 1s. But I think that if you went out in that way, definitely a 3, maybe even a 2. I don't know. It would depend on what else happens. But I know that Brad Evans joined Jeremy earlier this week. By the way, people have asked about Jeremy. He's good. He's got his brother's 40th birthday. So shout out to Brad Warner, and also shout out to Jeremy for being a good brother and not talking ball on here with us instead of being with his brother on his birthday. So that's what Jeremy is. He's all good.
Also a very fine how do you do when to come in and see the two of us here and ask where Jeremy is. Jeremy's a pro. I understand. Derek, you got a Zamboni coming your way again. Here he comes.
These amateurs. These guys are usually at the bar doing something. But
we do work. We have worked a time or two on some of these road trips. I'm going to talk while this Zamboni has the cleanest floors in the state of Wisconsin on now its 14th trip through the Kohl Center. I think this kind of, Derek, goes along into the conversation we just had of the 6 teams that have made the last 3 Big Ten tournament finals. Only 1 has made the Sweet 16. Yeah, I mean, like it's funny, and we talked about this a little bit on the way up, and I would imagine probably will again on the way back. When it felt like the year that they won it, they wanted that. They wanted to come through and get that, and just they were scorned, I feel like, with the regular season championship. They felt like they had something to prove. And obviously, that didn't lead to a deep NCAA tournament run. Iowa was the following year, I believe that's correct. They go through and they don't go on a run. I like banners. I like trophies. I think there's so much value in all of those things, Derek. But there's a very real discussion about playing very high-level games through the weekend into that Sunday of Selection Sunday, and then turning around and getting on an airplane and flying to who in the world knows where at this point. I just feel so awkward saying it's not good to win the Big Ten tournament, because I do think there's a lot of value in that as a program and being able to ride that. But I understand looking at it the other way and what that could mean from a rest standpoint on a team that has guys who play pretty high number of minutes, right? I mean, they have a shortened rotation, expanding a little bit now, but I do wonder what you think about that. I need to keep filibustering this until this party probably goes by you at this point, I think. But I do wonder what that looks like.
Trophies and awards and whatnot, this guy's working overtime. This is really isolating in. This is kind of like booty ball. I'm stuck in the post with the bass, and he's not going away. He's got me where he wants me. So, hold on, we'll do one more pass from me, Wagner.
I will. I do see, like, look, and that's kind of where this program. We'll get to your thoughts on this as soon as the excitement ends on your end, Derek. But someone said, look, it's all about the NCAA tournament. Nothing else matters. I don't think every year you would think that, but I understand the NCAA tournament angst right now, right? And the desire to see at least that second weekend, and you worry about anything that would get in the way to compromise that. Like, I, without question, understand that line of thinking, and I don't think that's a wrong line of thinking. It's just trying to say, like, oh, don't worry about that tournament, that Big Ten tournament thing, don't sweat. Like, that still is an adjustment just for me to try to feel not so awkward about saying.
Yeah, I think there is some recency bias kind of in looking at the results of the Big Ten tournament winner and what ends up happening. And look, Big Ten fans are trying to figure out and having theories about why this league is not putting numerous teams in Sweet 16s and beyond, Final Fours. Obviously still have the lack of a national championship hanging over their head, which goes back to Michigan State. Although unless you want to count Maryland now, of course, but not part of that league anyways. There have been years where the Big Ten title or the Big Ten tournament title winner then goes on a run. Like Michigan State's had it a handful of times. I think about the John Beilein Michigan teams. It just seemed to get hot at the right time, and then would kick into the NCAA tournament. And the squad that came in on a Thursday in practice warm-ups and beat the crap out of Illinois, and then went all the way to the title game and won it, and then went to the tournament and got the second weekend. I don't know if they bowed out in the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, but they had, I think, back-to-back Big Ten tournament championships and still went to the second weekend at least. So you can do it. sometimes I think it's just an excuse to bake in there of why this happened. Why, and for Illinois, when you're a 1 seed and you looked like a team that was a freight train and should have been at least in the Elite Eight against Houston, there's part of that. I think for Illinois in particular, though, there definitely was so much poured into that. They were on such a mission. There was some kind of mental letdown. I don't know about physical. And talking to people, I mean, we could use an entire pod on this. About what people around that team said.
Don't tempt people. You say that. Don't tempt people. We got another hour if we go.
I know, right? We got to get out of here soon. I don't know. They said, we were just dead, exhausted. I think it was more of a mental hurdle. There was a little bit of an exhale mentally. That's the way that it's been phrased to me or described to me is, you get that, and there was a little bit of relaxation and that whole kind of thing. So. Also, though, I think relating it to this team real quick and kind of on the note of what we've been talking about with this team and this game is that Illinois squad, for as good as they were, man, they had the most quad one wins in the country that year. And I was looking it up recently, 6 wins against top 10 teams. So they did a ton and won like a 14 out of 15 in a stretch. They were kind of they played their way into being kind of one-dimensional offensively. They were a pick and roll heavy Io and Kofi ball screen team, and teams just couldn't stop it. So they didn't have a real counter that they really repped and worked on. And you could talk about obviously the adjustments and whatnot. So when Loyola blew that thing up, Illinois didn't counter, and did they have something they could really run as a alternative? Of course, there are different things you could do, but with this team, I feel like you can't. If you try to take Terrence away with a certain defense or matchup, you got Marcus, you got Coleman still, and Coleman's showing more off the dribble here recently. You tried to double Marcus in the mid post and the booty ball. He can kick it out, and guys can make threes, or Terrence can get downhill. So I'm not saying this. I still don't personally believe this team is better than that Illinois Io Kofi team. But that is just one thing I think about kind of to relate it to what we were discussing is I think that offensively they're a little bit more flexible and can react to a certain game plan that focuses on one thing versus obviously that Illinois team of 2020, 2021.
All right, Derek, before we get out of here, I want to touch on a couple of last odds and ends from today up in Madison. Isaac brought up a couple good points with us. Saw a little bit of Nico Moretti, did not see any of Amani Hansberry. I thought, and it's being brought up in our chat, we'll close out with just if any of this is notable to you. Getting away from Justin Harmon on the inbounds passes late in the game was notable. Marcus Domask took over those roles, as I recall it. I thought that was a big deal. The press breaks. So let's close it out on this, Derek. What odds and ends stood out to you? To me, I thought the late game inbounding was notable and something that was a little bit of a welcome sight if you're an Illinois fan to see those maybe be a little less high pressure.
Yeah, I tweeted about it after Harmon calls the timeout that we're still rolling with Justin Harmon as the inbounder in some high-stress situations. After the timeout, Marcus is the one doing it, and that happened at Penn State too. After Justin called a timeout, also passed Domask into kind of that trap in the corner. The second timeout, they then ran it with Domask as the inbounder. He throws it to Coleman. Coleman gets fouled. Unfortunately, doesn't make the free throws, and the rest is history. So I want to see Domask in terms of his decision-making and passing. I know that you kind of want him as an inbounder, or you don't want him as an inbounder because you want him as a catch guy because he's a 80, high 80s, 90% free throw shooter. But Justin's had some issues there. So them being able to pivot off of that in a timeout was encouraging. And I think that's something that late game-wise, Illinois looked comfortable. They made free throws. They were able to get the ball across the timeline. Wisconsin's not really known for being, they can heat you up defensively in terms of their pressure or whatnot, but they closed the game well. Yeah, in terms of Nico and play a little bit, I didn't think this was necessarily the game to go there. Guarding Chucky Hepburn probably wasn't going to be the best thing for him. And offensively, one of his turnovers, I'm like, why are you not? What's up, Zamboni? Why are you not running a ball screen for Terrence Shannon? Right? So there were some possessions there where they went to there was a post into today and he turns it over. Moretti trying to create something off the dribble. I thought Illinois left some meat on the bone of not just running a simple ball screen with Terrence, getting him in the lane. Wisconsin, look at their metrics, terrible against ball screens. Literally the worst team in the country at field goal percentage at the rim defense. So they have some holes, and Illinois was able, obviously, to hurt them. But Amani, I wasn't sitting there eating it from him. I thought Quincy was decent at times.
Yes. I thought he showed some things. Sorry to cut you off. I thought active on the glass, saw him hit a three. Defensively, left a little bit there still at times.
Hit or miss.
That felt like a good step for Quincy Guerrier.
I agree. Yeah, I think his defense was hit or miss. I think as Wall kind of hurt in baseline later in the game, then it kind of stacked up a little bit. Maybe we were like, okay, he's not slowing him down. But early in the game, I liked he was active and help. I just thought he was a little bit more engaged than we've seen from Quincy kind of on the whole in February. And then, defensive rebounding and then also ability to step up and hit a 3-2. And he's really that. We keep coming back to it. Another unlock guy, a next level unlock for Illinois. If you can get him back to who he was December, the guy that showed up at Tennessee and had that hell of a game, and early to middle of January, 5 double-doubles in a 7-game stretch. So get him back, and this team can really have a lot cooking for themselves. You got to unmute, Joey.
Should have learned this in 2020. I got one more super chat from our friend Nolan Brooks. Not a shot at Brad, but I think we've called 3 timeouts in Big Ten play. 3 first-half timeouts, I'm sorry. 1 at Maryland, lost. 1 by Coleman on a 50-50 fall. 1 wasted today with 30 seconds left after we already blew away the lead. Any thoughts on that, Derek?
I mean, I know that he likes to use timeouts late in that first half to kind of diagram what he wants to do in those final possessions. If he got it offensively, what they're going to run. That's been a great common practice for them to call that and have something working. Of course, they had a bad close to the half. They did not get what they wanted. I know that Brad was upset because you had the breakdown from Harmon where he leaves Blackwell. That was part of it. I think there maybe was an offensive rebound that they gave up for another stretch. The final minute wasn't good. It was Gilmore gets stained in the air and one or foul, what have you. There was then Shannon's offensive possession. He takes the shot. I think Brad told him. I don't know exactly what he said, but it seemed like he was maybe pointing out it went too early. So to the question, I get under the idea you don't want to be short on timeouts late in the game, and maybe you just play that thing out at the end of a half because they were shorter on them at Penn State. That was one thing where if they had one more timeout, they could maybe find a way a little bit better to get Terrence the ball. Again, you'd probably live with the Justin shot in terms of just overall quality, but I understand the question. That's something that Brad likes to go to sometimes in terms of that last possession type of thing.
All right, guys, we appreciate you. I subbed in for Jeremy Werner today.
We're strong without Werner. We can do it.
We can do it. Sticking out through the Zamboni chat with the Zamboni pod with us. Appreciate that. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us for about an hour. A little noisier than usual. We apologize for that. Thank you for the super chats. I'm going to let Derek close it out because I am not a radio guy and I don't remember everything that we are supposed to say to close out of this. And I hope Jeremy doesn't get this far and listen to that.
We appreciate Isaac Ambrose getting us through this. Appreciate everybody that was listening. As always, we've got a great loyal following. If you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe. Make sure you turn the notifications on whenever we do one of these. Of course, as you know, live pods after every game. So look out for that. Big one coming up on Tuesday against Purdue. Really excited for that one. In the meantime, though, Joey and I got you covered as far as post-game coverage. I'll have takeaways after this game. the biggest ones coming out of this one. Joey really focusing in on Marcus Domask, his homecoming, and talking to his dad once again, getting great insight as far as that goes. Jeremy Warner has the quick hits up. He also has player grades on the way. So we love doing these. It's a fun time of year, a lot of meaningful basketball today and left to be played. So appreciate everybody, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday. Until then, this is the Illini Inquirer podcast. Everybody have a great rest of your weekend, and we will talk to you then at the State Farm Center on Tuesday. For Jeremy Warren, I keep wanting to say his name. He's not here. Joey Wagner. I'm Derek.
He's here in spirit. He's here in spirit.
So is Zim. This guy's high motor, man.
People for an hour just watch the Kohl Center get the cleanest floors you will ever see.
Insane. We got to get out of here. We got to get our Moon Man and our Spotted Cow and get back into the Illinois state line. So we're out. Talk to you on Tuesday. This has been the Illini Inquirer podcast.